Welcome to AudioDocs by Platform-Engineering-Playbook, where we transform open-source documentation into audio you can learn from anywhere. Each episode aspires to adapt official project docs into digestible audio, explaining concepts clearly using conversational explanations that are easier to absorb on the go. Everything you hear is built, reviewed, and improved by AI, by me, and by you, the listener. If you find this useful, please like and subscribe. And if you catch any mistakes, please leave a comment or open a pull request to help make the playbook smarter. The episode transcripts are open source at platform-engineering-playbook.com. Let's get into it.
kubectx and kubens, Power Tools for Kube Control, version 0.9.5. Today, we're diving into two essential tools that will transform how you navigate Kubernetes clusters and namespaces. If you've ever found yourself typing long kubectl config commands just to switch between clusters, or constantly forgetting which namespace you're currently working in, kubectx and kubens are about to become your new best friends. Let's start with the problem these tools solve. When you work with Kubernetes, you're constantly juggling contexts and namespaces. A context in Kubernetes represents a cluster, user, and namespace combination. Every time you want to switch from your development cluster to production, the standard kubectl approach looks something like this. kubectl config use-context gke-prod-us-1-b-production. That's not just verbose, it's error-prone. One typo in a production context name could mean running commands against the wrong cluster. And namespaces are even more frequently switched. During a typical debugging session, you might move between kubesystem, monitoring, logging, and your application namespaces dozens of times. The standard kubectl approach, kubectl config set-context-current-namespace equals monitoring. Every single time. kubectx and kubens eliminate this friction entirely. Let's talk about what kubectx does. At its core, kubectx is a context switcher. Run kubectx with no arguments, and you see a list of all your configured contexts. Your current context is highlighted. Type kubectx followed by a context name, and you instantly switch to that context. That's it. No verbose commands, no remembering exact syntax. But the real magic comes with a few key features. First, there's the dash flag. Run kubectx- and you switch back to your previous context. This is incredibly useful when you're jumping between two clusters repeatedly. Production to staging, staging to production. Just kubectx- each time. Second, context renaming. Those long auto-generated context names from cloud providers, you can rename them. kubectx prod equals gke_myproject_us1-production. Now, instead of typing that monster, you just type kubectx prod. Third, and this is where it gets really powerful, interactive mode with FZF. If you have FZF installed, running kubectx presents an interactive fuzzy search menu. Start typing any part of a context name, and it filters in real time. Arrow keys to navigate, enter to select. For anyone managing 10, 20, or more contexts, this is transformative. kubens works exactly the same way, but for namespaces. Run kubens to see all namespaces in your current cluster. Current namespace is highlighted. Type kubens kubesystem to switch. Use kubens- to toggle back to your previous namespace. There's one additional feature in kubens, the force flag. Sometimes you need to set a namespace that doesn't exist yet. Maybe you're about to create it, or you're working with a namespace that will be created by a CI pipeline. kubens namespace-f forces the switch even if the namespace doesn't exist. Both tools support tab completion in Bash, Z Shell, and Fish. This means you don't even need to remember the full context or namespace name. Type kubectx, prod, hit tab, and it autocompletes to your production context. Installation is straightforward. The easiest method for Mac OS and Linux is Homebrew. Brew install kubectx. This installs both tools and sets up shell completions automatically. If you prefer kubectl plugins, you can use Krew. kubectl Krew install ctx and kubectl Krew install ns. For Debian and Ubuntu, sudo apt install kubectx. For Arch Linux, sudo pacman-s kubectx. Windows users have Chocolatey, Scoop, or Winget options. If you want the interactive fuzzy search, also install fzf. On Mac OS, brew install fzf. On Debian, sudo apt install fzf. Once fzf is in your path, kubectx and kubens automatically detect it and enable interactive mode. If you have fzf installed but sometimes want the non-interactive output, set the environment variable kubectx ignore fzf equals 1, or simply pipe the output to another command, like kubectx pipe cat, which also disables interactive mode. Let's talk about customization. You can change how the current context or namespace is highlighted. Set kubectx current FG color to change the foreground color and kubectx current BG color for the background. These use tput color codes. For example, tput setf6 gives you cyan text. If you prefer no colors at all, set the no color environment variable. This follows the nocolor.org standard that many command line tools respect. Some practical tips for your workflow. First, consider pairing kubectx with kubps1. kubps1 adds your current Kubernetes context and namespace to your shell prompt. Combined with kubectx and kubens, you always know where you are and can switch instantly. Second, rename your contexts immediately when you add new clusters. Don't wait until you have 20 contexts with names like gke_project_ID_region_cluster name. Give them human-readable names: prod, staging, dev local, client A prod. Third, use the dash flag religiously. It becomes muscle memory. Checking something in production, kubectx prod. Done. Back to development, kubectx dash. You never need to remember where you were. Fourth, if you manage many clusters, consider organizing your contexts with naming conventions, something like client-environment-region. Then fzf filtering becomes incredibly powerful. Type prod to see all production clusters. Type client A to see all of one client's clusters. A quick note on the implementation. Originally, kubectx and kubens were bash scripts. Starting with version 0.9.0, they've been rewritten in Go. This means faster execution, better cross-platform support, and new features. The bash versions are still available if you need them, but the Go implementations are recommended. The behavior is identical, so existing scripts and muscle memory transfer directly. Let's summarize what we've covered. kubectx switches between Kubernetes contexts with a simple command. kubens switches between namespaces. Both support the dash flag to toggle back to your previous selection. Both integrate with fzf for interactive fuzzy search. Shell completion works in Bash, Z Shell, and Fish. Installation is one command via Homebrew, apt, pacman, or Krew. The key takeaway? Kubernetes cluster and namespace management doesn't have to be tedious. These two small tools remove friction from operations you perform hundreds of times a day. Install them, rename your contexts to something memorable, and your Kubernetes workflow immediately becomes faster and less error-prone. For more information, visit the GitHub repository at github.com/amitb/kubectx. That's kubectx and kubens.
That's it for this episode of AudioDocs by Platform Engineering Playbook. If you spotted any issues with these audio docs, leave a comment or open a pull request. Every script and transcript lives out in the open at platform-engineering-playbook.com. Finally, if you found this valuable, consider subscribing and giving this video a thumbs up to help others discover our content. Thanks for listening, and see you next time inside the Platform Engineering Playbook.